Iran ceasefire close? Russian drone hits Romania, and Trump $250 bill on the way? Greetings, humanity. Let's GROK the news, starting with the most important story in the world today. Dateline, Washington, D.C. U.S. and Iranian negotiators have reached a tentative framework for a 60-day ceasefire extension that would reopen the Strait of Hormuz, pending final approval from President Trump and Supreme Leader Khamenei. Vice President Vance described the sides as very close, but not there yet, while Treasury Secretary Bessent emphasized that Trump will not accept a bad deal that leaves Iran with enrichment capability or terror networks intact. Republican lawmakers and Israeli officials are pushing hard red lines. GOP Representative Fallon stated that Iran cannot retain enriched uranium and must halt ballistic missile exports and terror support. Israel's ambassador to Washington insisted Tehran cannot keep its centrifuges spinning. These demands reflect deep concern that any agreement must dismantle Iran's nuclear breakout capacity rather than repeat the shortcomings of the Obama-era deal, which Representative Moulton defended despite current tensions. Global energy markets reacted with oil prices easing on hopes of resumed tanker traffic through Hormuz. But India is already diversifying by seeking supplies in Latin America and Africa as a hedge. More on that later. The framework comes amid ongoing skirmishes with reports of tit-for-tat strikes near the vital waterway. Trump has repeatedly declared that no country will control Hormuz under any final arrangement, and is pressing Gulf states toward expanded Abraham Accords participation as part of broader regional security. Critics on the right warn that rushed diplomacy risks repeating past mistakes that funded Iranian proxies. Supporters argue that pragmatic de-escalation prevents wider war while maintaining maximum pressure through sanctions. The situation remains fluid. National security priorities demand any deal verifiably ends Iran's nuclear threshold status and terror financing. Religious liberty and traditional values advocates watch closely as regional stability affects Christian communities and broader Middle East dynamics. Borders and energy security remain central. An unreliable agreement could spike prices and encourage adversaries elsewhere. As of this hour, the framework hangs in the balance. President Trump faces pressure to secure American interests without compromising on core demands for verifiable disarmament of Iran's most dangerous capabilities. This observer just keeps thinking about the poor people of Persia who are hoping for new leadership and freedom. I'm Robert Gardner, using GROK each weekday to truthfully summarize the news, well seasoned, of course, with my opinions. We review a roundup of the most critical reports in the world right after this. God with Us, the story of Jesus, is a full blending of all the Gospels into a continuous narrative, missing nothing from the Savior's life. God with Us is adapted to modern language, formatted for easy reading. It's a faithful paraphrase divided into brief studies, fit for daily Bible study. This book was fully researched to present the story of Jesus, from his birth to his ascension. So find God with Us by me, Robert Gardner, at Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. Now we GROK the news headlines from around the world. Dateline Bucharest. A Russian drone launched toward Ukraine crashed into a residential apartment building in Galati, Romania. injuring civilians and drawing sharp NATO and EU condemnation as an escalation. Officials call it a reckless spillover from the Ukraine conflict, and it threatens alliance territory. Romania demands accountability, while NATO reinforces eastern defenses. Dateline Cape Canaveral. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin New Glenn rocket exploded during a static fire engine test on the launch pad at Cape Canaveral. And that's why you do those tests. No injuries reported, but the setback delays heavy lift capabilities for NASA and commercial missions. Investigators are examining the cause as America's space industry pushes forward one explosion at a time. I'm sorry, folks, that's just how it's done. Dateline Kinshasa in the Congo. The Ebola outbreak in Central Africa continues spreading rapidly. Over 200 dead. Reports of 900 dead earlier. The WHO chief is on the ground, while the U.S. has opened a quarantine facility in Kenya for potentially exposed Americans. Uganda closed its border as doctors described the situation as out of control. Dateline Jerusalem. Prime Minister Netanyahu directed the IDF to expand control of the Gaza Strip to 70% amid intensified operations. Israeli strikes also hit targets in Lebanon despite the fragile ceasefire attempts there. Officials cite ongoing security threats from Hamas and Hezbollah, which, of course, are the proxies of Iran. Dateline New York. The UN added Israel and Russia to its blacklist for conflict-related sexual violence. Both nations rejected the designation as politically motivated. Israel highlighted ongoing threats from Hamas and Hezbollah while defending its military operations. No word on the rapes and terrible crimes of Hamas. Dateline Washington, D.C. Treasury Secretary Bessent has confirmed that the U.S. Treasury is actively working on designs for a new $250 bill featuring President Trump's portrait and signature. The proposal requires congressional approval and reflects symbolic confidence in the current administration's economic vision. Dateline Sacramento. California's Attorney General sued the successor company to 23andMe over the 2023 data breach that exposed millions of users' genetic information. The lawsuit alleges failure to protect sensitive personal data adequately. Well, this observer sent his DNA off to Ancestry.com or whoever they use to find out pretty much what he already knew. And if somebody hacks and gets this observer's DNA and uses it to clone people out there, all I can say is that it'll be a better place. Dateline London. A new UK report warns that without urgent action, 1 in 6 young people could be out of work or out of training within 5 years. Youth unemployment concerns mount as businesses cite skills gaps and economic pressures. You know, importing hundreds of thousands of unemployed youths from North Africa probably didn't help. Dateline Vientiane, Laos. International divers joined the intensified rescue operation for 5 people trapped in a Laos cave system. Heavy rain and difficult terrain complicate efforts as authorities race against time to reach the stranded group. They entered the cave with the torrential rains on the way, searching for gold and finding, well, hopefully they have not found their deaths. Dateline Dallas. An explosion and a massive fire at a Dallas apartment complex killed at least 3 people, including a child. Search and rescue operations continue as investigators examine the cause of the deadly blast. Dateline New Delhi. Extreme heat reaching 45 degrees Celsius or centigrade, that's 113 degrees, as we would call it in America. Well, that is forcing Delhi's poorest residents into survival mode, with limited access to cooling or even water. Vulnerable populations face heightened health risks during the prolonged heat wave. Dateline Lisbon. Portugal recorded its hottest May day on record as a heat dome grips much of Europe. Temperatures shattered previous marks, raising concerns about agriculture, public health, and, of course, climate patterns across the continent. Dateline Paris, France. Top-ranked Jannik Sinner suffered a shocking second-round loss at the 2026 French Open under scorching conditions. The upset highlights the physical toll of extreme heat on elite athletes during the clay court Grand Slam. Dateline Beijing. China is aggressively seeking alternative oil supplies in Latin America and Africa following the disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. The diversification strategy aims to protect its economy from Middle East instability. India, as mentioned earlier, is doing the same. This observer expects to see Europe do so too eventually. I mean, no one sane expects sane actions from Iran in the future. Dateline London. UK Special Forces troops faced war crimes accusations of killing handcuffed prisoners and individuals with no firearms, but were not referred to police, partly over morale concerns, according to a recent inquiry. The case raises questions about accountability and military culture during overseas operations. Dateline Vienna. An Austrian man received a 15-year prison sentence for plotting a jihadi attack on a Taylor Swift concert. Authorities emphasized vigilance against Islamic terror threats targeting large public entertainment events. The man's name has been withheld from reports in accordance with Austrian privacy laws. And Dateline Washington, D.C. A California teenager, 14-year-old Shrey Parikh, won the 2026 Scripps National Spelling Bee in a dramatic final round. The victory highlights academic excellence among American students and draws national attention to spelling competition traditions. The 101-year-old contest was won with the word kashaw, which is a type of pumpkin. Can you spell it? This observer probably would not have spelled that correctly. But I thank you for listening. Please join me Monday to once again GROK the news. I'm Robert Gardner. Godspeed and God bless.